John Overview. Framing the Word. The rain had settled into a steady, low drumming against the corrugated metal roof of the workshop, a soft counter-rhythm to the quiet tick of the old wall clock. Outside, the coastal dark pressed close. Inside, the air held the deep, resinous scent of freshly cut Douglas fir and the finer dust of sanded maple. A single bank of pendant lights hung over the long workbench, casting warm pools across scattered chisels, a half-finished dovetail joint, and the broad slate board Arthur had leaned against a stack of timber. Arthur stood with one hand resting on a massive beam of reclaimed oak, the other loosely curled around a short length of chalk. 63. Shoulders still broad from decades of lifting, his fingers mapped with the permanent maps of callus and nick. He did not raise his voice. He rarely needed to. Most people treat the Gospels like four different carpenters describing the same house, he said. Matthew measures for the foundation. Mark works fast, framing under pressure. Luke keeps the levels true and the plumb line honest. John is the one who steps back when the walls are already up and shows you the load-bearing design that was always there. He drew a single vertical line down the center of the slate. Elena, notebook open on her knee, leaned forward. The symmetry is almost architectural. The prologue frames everything like a lintel: logos, light, life. Then the whole structure resolves in the Book of Glory. Light and darkness keep trading places until the darkness thinks it is one, and then the light is raised up. Arthur nodded once. That's the keystone. John doesn't start with a birth narrative because he's not telling you how the house was built. He's telling you what the house is. In the beginning was the Word, not a starting point in time, a load path that runs through every joint. Julian, the young apprentice, sat on an upturned nail keg, elbows on his knees. Sawdust still clung to the cuffs of his jeans. So the logos is the blueprint that was never drawn on paper, the one the timber itself remembers. Exactly. Arthur tapped the chalk against the board. 7 signs, not random miracles, 7 carefully placed beams. Water to wine, the official son, the paralytic, the feeding, walking on water, the man born blind, Lazarus. Each one carries weight the next one needs. And 7 I am statements, self-bracing braces that lock the whole frame: bread, light, door, shepherd, resurrection, way, vine. You remove any one of them, and the structure sags. Lyle had been quiet, arms folded, the permanent tiredness of night shifts still in his shoulders. When he spoke, his voice was low. The foot washing gets me every time. Chapter 13. He doesn't just talk about serving. He gets down on the floor with a towel and actual dirt. After all the high talk of light and glory, the Word made flesh kneels and handles feet that have walked through the same streets we walk. That's not metaphor. That's physics. That's the body. Arthur's eyes flicked to him with quiet recognition. The incarnation is the joint that holds heaven and earth without splitting either. John won't let you spiritualize it away. The same hands that shape the galaxies wash the dust off Peter's ankles. Then he tells them to do the same. The structure demands it. Miriam, silver hair pinned back, sat with her worn Bible open but untouched. She had quoted individual verses for 40 years of classroom discussion. Tonight she was listening for the grain. I've known the pieces, she said slowly. I never saw how the Farewell Discourse sits like a ridge beam across the whole roof. Everything before it leans toward that night. Everything after it descends from it. The hour finally arrives, and the glory is the cross itself. Sam, pragmatic and still in the collared shirt he'd worn to close the shop, rested both hands on the workbench. Why does he leave so much out? No parables of the kingdom. Almost no exorcisms. The Lord's Supper is barely there. Matthew, Mark, and Luke give you the full set of plans. John gives you the engineering drawings and expects you to trust the joints. Arthur smiled, the lines at the corners of his eyes deepening. Because the earlier Gospels already framed the house. John is writing for people who already know the story and still need to know whether the roof will hold when the rain comes hard. He selects, he interprets, he shows you the hidden bracing, the dualisms of light and dark, above and below, seeing and believing, so that when you walk into the finished structure, you don't just admire the craftsmanship, you live inside it. He set the chalk down and rested both palms on the oak beam. The Book of Glory doesn't begin at the empty tomb. It begins when Judas goes out into the night and Jesus says, "Now is the Son of Man glorified." The cross is the place where the load is transferred. Everything John has built, prologue, signs, I ams, the long discourse of love and abiding, finds its bearing point there. The structure is designed so that the weight of the world can rest on a single set of outstretched arms and not collapse. Rain continued its soft percussion overhead. In the warm light, the grain of the oak seemed almost to move. No one spoke for a long moment. The workshop held the silence the way good joinery holds a joint, tight, without strain, ready for whatever weight would come next.